Tekken 8 just nerfed everybody. And no, I'm not exaggerating. Every single character in the game just lost health. Maximum health has officially been reduced from 200 to 190. And that is only one part of this update. Quick recovery has been hit with a pretty significant nerf. Bryan has received an actual balance adjustment. We have got changes involving Leroy, Lili and Nina. And then there are pages, and I mean pages, of hitbox, tracking, heat, wall and character specific fixes. So rather than sitting here and reading 8 pages of patch notes to you, I went through the whole thing, and I want to talk about the changes that could actually matter when you jump online. Because version 3.02.01 might look like a smaller update, but there are some very interesting decisions in here. Let's start with the big one. Tekken 8 characters previously had 200 health. After this update, that has been reduced now to 190. Every character, every matchup, every round. Now I know what some of you are probably thinking. It's only 10 health. And technically, yeah, it is. We are talking about a 5% reduction. But here is why I think this is more important than the number makes it sound. Your combos haven't suddenly lost 5% of their damage. Your punishment hasn't suddenly become weaker. Counter hits still hurt. Wall combos still hurt. Heat still exists. Rage still exists. All the ridiculous situations that can delete huge chunks of your health bar are still there, except now there is less health available to survive them. So effectively, damage just became more valuable. Think about how many Tekken rounds end with somebody surviving on practically nothing. 5 health, 3 health, 1 tiny pixel. Those situations are now going to end differently. A combo that previously left somebody alive could now kill. A punish that wasn't quite enough might now finish the round. And those little bits of damage you get throughout a match become slightly more important. So while 10 health doesn't sound dramatic on paper, over hundreds of matches, we are going to notice this. And obviously, if you're changing the maximum health, you also need to think about rage. Previously, rage activated at 47 health. That has now been changed to 45. So they have adjusted the threshold alongside the smaller health pool. And I think that is important, because otherwise you'd effectively be spending a larger percentage of every round in rage. Instead, they are keeping that relationship relatively similar. But here is the interesting question. What does the lower overall health actually do to the pace of Tekken? Because Tekken 8 is already an aggressive game. You make one bad decision near a wall, things can go downhill very quickly. Now everybody has slightly less room for error, and I'm genuinely curious whether this makes rounds feel better, or whether we're about to see even more situations where somebody explodes after making 2 mistakes. We'll have to actually play the patch to know. Now this change is potentially even more interesting. Quick recovery has had its recovery time increased by 5 frames. And 5 frames might not sound like much if you don't spend your life looking at Tekken frame data. But look at what it actually does to the situation. Previously, quick recovery could leave you at -2 on block. Now you are -7. And on hit, you previously went from +3 to now being -2. That is a big difference. You are taking a situation where you previously had the advantage on hit and now the other player gets the advantage. That is not just changing a number, that is changing whose turn it effectively is. And if you are already built habits around quick recovery, this is something you are going to want to relearn immediately. Because if you keep playing the old situation automatically, you could find yourself pressing when you really should not be. And this actually lines up perfectly with what the developers say at the beginning of the patch notes. They specifically mention looking at moves that have a major impact on the competitive environment and situations where the risk-reward balance isn't where they want it to be. Their goal is apparently to increase the range of options available in the mind game for both offense and defense. And I think quick recovery is a really good example. If an option is too safe or gives you too much reward for too little risk, then it stops being much of a decision. You just do it. But if there is a meaningful downside, now you have actually got to think. And Tekken is at its best when both players are constantly making those little decisions. So now let's get into the character specific changes. And Bryan immediately stands out. Because unlike most of the character entries in these notes, Bryan actually has changes specifically categorized as balance. And one of them is actually pretty significant. One of his situations previously gave him +5 on block. After this patch, that's been reduced to +1. That is a big difference. Bryan is still technically plus, but +1 and +5 are absolutely not the same situation. At +5, you have to respect a lot. At +1, suddenly the defender has considerably more freedom to interact. And that's not all. The chip damage on block has also been reduced from 6 to 4. So you are getting less chip damage and less advantage afterwards. That is a pretty clear nerf to that specific pressure situation. Bryan has several other adjustments too. There is a counter hit behavior change. A close range hitbox has been expanded to stop the move whiffing unnecessarily. There are corrections involving side and back hits. There is a wall throw positioning fix. Some sidestep interactions have been cleaned up. And one of his airborne attacks has been corrected so attack reversal behaves properly against it. So this isn't some gigantic Bryan redesign, but that +5 to +1 adjustment, Bryan players are definitely going to feel that one. There are a few other actual balance changes worth mentioning also. Leroy has had the distance from his opponent reduced on counter hit for one of his attacks. Now the interesting part here is that Bandai Namco specifically labels this as a balance adjustment. So this isn't simply fixing something that wasn't working properly. They intentionally wanted that situation to change. Lili gets something similar. During heat, while back facing the opponent, the distance to the opponent on block has been reduced. Again, specifically categorized as balance. And Nina also has an intentional adjustment. The opponent's behavior on counter hit for the second hit of one of her attacks has been changed. So it now matches the behavior of a normal hit. These aren't enormous character destroying nerfs, but they are worth paying attention to because they are intentional balanced decisions rather than simple bug fixes. And this is where the patch notes get interesting because there are 8 pages here, but most of them aren't traditional buffs and nerfs. They are behavior fixes, hitbox corrections, tracking fixes, wall interactions, throw behavior, heat interactions, attack reversal properties, positioning issues. Basically, Bandai Namco has gone through a ridiculous number of weird interactions and tried to make them behave more consistently. And honestly, that is probably a good thing, because Tekken has so many possible interactions that weird stuff is inevitably going to happen. But there are some common themes here that are worth understanding. One thing you'll notice constantly throughout these notes is attack reversal. A lot of airborne attacks apparently weren't carrying the correct property, which meant they could be defended against using attack reversal when they weren't supposed to be. So Bandai Namco has gone through numerous characters and corrected that. You'll see this mentioned for characters like Armor King, Asuka, Feng, Heihachi, King, Kuma and Panda, Law, my character Lee, Leo, Lili, Nina, Reina, Shaheen, Steve, Xiao Yu, Yoshimitsu, Zafina and more. So if you've ever had some strange reversal interaction and thought, wait, was that actually supposed to happen? Apparently, in some cases, no, it wasn't. There is also a huge amount of hitbox work in this update. Some attacks have had their hitboxes expanded because they were whiffing when they shouldn't. Others have had hitboxes reduced behind the character because they were hitting opponents they probably had no business touching. And I actually kinda like this kind of change, because nothing feels worse than visually seeing an attack connect and the game says, nope, sorry mate, it's not happening. But the opposite is also true. If I'm just standing behind you and your attack is clearly going in the other direction, I probably should not randomly get hit also. So even though these aren't exciting changes for a thumbnail, they matter for consistency, and consistency matters in a competitive fighting game. Walls are another theme. Several characters had situations where positioning could become strange near a wall. Sometimes players could swap sides unexpectedly. Some attacks could behave differently than intended. Throws could create weird positioning, and certain charge attacks could apparently come out earlier than intended after a wall break. A lot of that has been cleaned up, and again, these aren't changes you are necessarily going to notice immediately. But over thousands of matches, removing those weird interactions should make the game feel more predictable. Heat isn't escaping the patch either. There is a general fix involving the running action triggered after heat activation. For certain characters, activating heat could leave them farther away from their opponent than intended. The affected characters included Asuka, Jack 8, Jun, Kuma and Panda, Kunimitsu, Lee, Leroy, Lili, Raven, Reina, Xiao Yu, Yoshimitsu and Zafina. That is now been adjusted. There are also fixes involving heat during wall combos, damage scaling, power crush interactions and input buffering during heat activation or heat dash. So again, a lot of cleanup rather than completely redesigning the system. Now, if you are a Kunimitsu player, you have got some homework to do, because Kunimitsu has a lot of entries in this patch. We have got hitbox expansions, tracking changes, power crush adjustments, back facing interactions, an air throw fix, crouching changes, wall positioning fixes, side hit behavior, more hitbox changes. It's basically an entire shopping list for you. But here is the important thing. Most of these are categorized as behavior, so I wouldn't immediately call this some giant Kunimitsu buff or nerf. What I would do is go into training mode and test the situations that you already use, because even a behavior fix can change how reliable something feels. Reina players also have a decent number of changes. She's got attack hitboxes behind her reduced. A counter hit strike throw situation has been fixed. Power crush pushback has been adjusted. Heat input buffering has been corrected. There are attack reversal fixes. A wind god step hitbox has been expanded, what the heck. And there is a collision fix involving a successful parry near a wall. Again, nothing here screams Reina has been destroyed, but it's enough that dedicated Reina players should definitely test their setups. And this brings me to something important about patch notes like this. Just because something is categorized as behavior does not mean it can't affect the strength of a character. Think about it. If your move constantly whiffs in a situation where it clearly should connect, and Bandai Namco expands the hitbox, that move just became more reliable. That is effectively good for you. On the other hand, if you have been benefiting from a giant hitbox behind your character, and now that hitbox gets removed, you just lost something that previously worked. So technically, it's a behavior correction. But from the player's perspective, you might experience that as a buff or a nerf. That's why I wouldn't make any massive tier list conclusions just from reading these pages. We need to test this stuff. But after reading all 8 pages, I keep coming back to one thing. Why reduce health? Because that is not fixing a bug. That is not correcting a hitbox. That is not fixing some weird wall interaction. That is a deliberate change affecting the entirety of the game. And I think the answer probably comes back to risk and reward. If Bandai Namco wants decisions to matter more, then reducing health makes mistakes slightly more expensive. Your punishment matters more. Your combo matters more. Your wall pressure matters more. Your decision to challenge matters more. And your decision to take a risk matters more. But there is another side to that. Tekken 8 is already pretty explosive, so does the game really need players dying faster? That's where I'm sort of undecided, because I can see the argument for both ways. I'm just unsure on which fence to sit on. On one hand, less health could make matches more exciting. Punishment gets rewarded, strong reads matter, optimized combos actually feel optimized, and players can't make as many mistakes without consequences. If somebody completely outplays you in 2 major interactions, maybe they should win the round. That's a perfectly reasonable argument. And the 5% reduction isn't so enormous that we are suddenly playing a completely different game. But on the other hand, Tekken 8 already has situations where your health bar disappears very quickly. One launch, wall carry, wall pressure, wrong defensive decision, goodbye. So if the game already feels extremely momentum heavy, reducing health could potentially push that even further. Maybe rounds become more exciting, or maybe you feel like you haven't even got any opportunities to recover after making one bad decision. That is what I'm most interested in seeing, not the number itself, but how does 190 health actually feel? Because that is something patch notes cannot tell us. And looking at the bigger picture, I actually think version 3.02.01 tells us quite a lot about where Bandai Namco wants Tekken 8 to go. They aren't just randomly changing damage numbers, they are talking about risk versus reward. They are adjusting defensive options, they are cleaning up inconsistent interactions, they are correcting tracking, they are correcting hitboxes, they are fixing walls, they are fixing reversals, and they are just reducing health. It feels like they are trying to make the decisions players make more deliberate and make the consequences of those decisions more consistent. So whether they have actually achieved that, well, we'll find that out together as a community, because Tekken players are very good at finding things the developers did not expect. Let's give the community about 5 minutes. Somebody will find something ridiculous. So overall, I wouldn't describe version 3.02 as some gigantic character balance overhaul. That's not really what it is. These are targeted balance changes. Bryan definitely has something worth talking about. Leroy, Lili and Nina have intentional adjustments, but most of the character specific work is focused on behavior and consistency. The 2 universal changes are what interest me the most: 190 maximum health and the quick recovery nerf. Those affect the fundamental way matches play, rather than one specific matchup. And out of everything in these 8 pages, I think the health change has the biggest potential to affect everyone. But now, I want to hear what you guys think. Is reducing health from 200 to 190 actually a good change for Tekken 8? Or did this game already have enough damage? And if your main appears anywhere in these patch notes, let me know what you think about their changes. Buff, nerf, basically meaningless. Or is there something hidden in these behavior fixes that people haven't noticed yet? Drop it in the comments because I genuinely want to see what people discover once this patch gets properly tested. And if anything ridiculous comes out of version 3.02.01, you already know we're going to talk about it. So yeah, subscribe if you want more Tekken 8 breakdowns, and I'll catch you in the next one.